Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk about Bitcoin privacy, or how privacy impacts Bitcoin and why you should care about it. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my screen share. And this is based on the Dan Held newsletter. So I send out a newsletter every Thursday. So if you want to hear my thoughts first, go ahead and subscribe there. You can search Dan Held Substack on Google, and it's the first result. So the topic today is Bitcoin privacy and talking through why privacy is important for Bitcoin, what is privacy, why do we deserve it, etc. And starting out here was a good quote from Edward Snowden. If people aren't familiar, Edward Snowden is the one who leaked all the NSA spying on Americans documents, all the documents, all the data behind how basically the NSA was spying on every single American out there. And so here's what he has to say about it. Arguing that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is like arguing that you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. If we don't have privacy, what we're losing is the ability to make mistakes. We're losing the ability to be ourselves. Privacy is the fountainhead of all other rights. And he's right. It's a fundamental human right. When it comes to financial privacy, your personal finances should not be up for public scrutiny. No one should be able to publicly go parse through your credit card receipts or your cash purchases and go, hey, Dan, why'd you buy that pear or that apple? This is important because it ensures that money is allocated efficiently in the economy. I don't have to worry about being judged when I go purchase an item that I want to purchase. I don't have to worry about being judged for investing in an idea that solves a problem, hence why I think it'll be profitable, because it is disliked by a certain left or right side of the political spectrum. And it's important because then groups can't be marginalized. If you're of a certain race, creed, or any other sort of aspect that you could be censored from transacting. Privacy ensures that your ability to participate in the economy can't be stopped. And then with money, there's a term called fungibility, which means that one asset is equally interchangeable with another of the same asset. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. One bar of gold equals one bar of gold. And here's an example of where that doesn't apply. One house does not equal one house. They're very distinctly different items. And concerns have been raised around the lack of privacy in Bitcoin because this may impact fungibility, the ability for one unit to represent one unit, and that could potentially hurt Bitcoin's long-term prospects. Since Bitcoin's ledger is visible to all, people are concerned that states could de-anonymize users, blacklist coins, or if certain Bitcoin were tainted, then it could break the interchangeability of it. But this is a classic Bitcoin needs fixing argument that a lot of people do. They come in and they think that Bitcoin isn't working well and they want to fix it. This was an example of the big blockers, otherwise known as Bitcoin Cash or Bcashers, who wanted to increase the block size to allow for cheaper payments for everyday retail payments. Well, Bitcoin didn't need that. No one was using Bitcoin to buy coffees and pizzas. They were using Bitcoin to store value. And what seems to be a simple trade-off where they're like, oh, let's just simply raise the block size. There's actually a lot of nuance to that as to the reasons why you should or shouldn't do that. Same thing with privacy. Privacy seems like this easy win, but there's a lot of different things that we should consider. So jumping in here a little bit. The standard of privacy or fungibility is fiat cash. And what I'm talking about is the euros, dollars, yen, whatever's in your pocket that you go spend at the local retailer. But people forget that when you deposit large values or purchase large items, this money, this fiat money, is not at all fungible. There's a ton of identifiable information that is collected around how you got the money, around what's your name and delivery. And also banks will maybe check those serial numbers against recorded crimes. And in the United States, banks are required to flag or file a SARS report, a suspicious action report, if they think that your transaction could be malicious or not malicious, but suspicious. And they're required to do this for values over $10,000. Additionally, there are cameras in businesses that could record you and digital services that are tied to your name. So you buy a VPN app or you have Netflix, etc. So even the most fungible money by the definition, fiat cash, has limitations in terms of its fungibility. Bitcoin is perfectly fungible at the protocol level. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. The software does not include anything for taint or anything that flags it as bad or good. The Bitcoin software interacts, though, with KYC AML services where things can be flagged just like your fiat cash. So Bitcoin essentially works works similarly to the existing paper cash system that we have now. Also, there's no secondary market for tainted Bitcoins, which means that Bitcoin is still fungible even on the KYC AML level. Secondary market here would mean that folks are looking to buy and sell Bitcoin at a discount because it's been tainted, because it's been used in a legal transaction. No, we don't have that, especially for fiat cash. Most fiat cash has cocaine on them, and that cocaine is a taint of those dollar bills, but they're still used for everyday purchases. Here's a New York Times article where I wanted to highlight the when banks file suspicious action reports. This was from the Bank Secrecy Act, initially used to stop the war on drugs, which included a lot of rights that we gave up, a lot of freedoms that we gave up. Last year, banks filed over 700,000 of these. So this is a very common thing for banks to do. So fungibility and privacy. There's no such thing as perfect privacy. You're leaking data everywhere. The weather app on your phone is selling your location data. Social media apps are selling your interests, and VPN apps are selling your usage. Here's a prime example. The US military bought data of a mobile app that Muslims used to track the times that they needed to go pray. Pretty crazy, right? Well, if you open up your phone, take a look at all the apps on your phone. Many of these sell your data. And the average app has on average like a dozen SDKs. SDKs are other third-party developer software inside the app that you have, and it then allows them to do certain things like track analytics, etc. That third-party app sells your information too. There's almost an endless chain of apps selling your data. Also, like VPN apps, if you use a VPN app, some of them sell your data. And then when we look at like cell phone towers and telecoms, they all sell your data too. This is the ACLU, a big freedom and human rights advocate in the United States. And they're suing the United States because the US is secretly paying for location data. They can look at your lat long, your GPS coordinates throughout the day. And that is, they can buy and sell that freely. Here's another great example. Free VPN apps are selling your data. So I think you get the picture. A lot of your data is being sold. There's no such thing as perfect privacy unless you live like in a bunker in the middle of nowhere with no electronics. Congratulations, you're private. But most of us, we want to interact with the digital world to some extent. In regards to Bitcoin, even if you do a coin joined transaction, which these are great ways to preserve your privacy, I would recommend everyone check out Wasabi Wallet. It's a really popular wallet in the space. It's got a great interface. So if you want to, on the Bitcoin base layer, if you want to be able to preserve your privacy, because Bitcoin's ledger is transparent, then you should go use coin joins. But even if you use coin joins, are you doing it behind Tor? Have you never talked about Bitcoin in person or online? Have you ever purchased your Bitcoin through a KYC AML vendor? Do you do perfect coin control? Most wallets don't even have coin control, which means you can select individual UTXOs. Hopefully you don't leave a fingerprint with your wallet UTXO selection. Very few people will be able to go fully private, to be completely, and by the way, none of these include zero-day exploits that the government currently has on most types of devices or through most software. So to be perfectly private is extremely difficult, and perfect privacy is not needed to preserve fungibility, since perfect privacy is an impossible standard. So here's a great page from the Bitcoin Wiki, which, by the way, it's got great content here. I recommend everyone check it out, whether you want to look at privacy or other topics. But here's the section on privacy and the ways that you can be identified or that you can de-anonymize users on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's a pretty extensive list. Look, Bitcoin is really great at being digital gold. It's a perfectly transparent ledger, so everyone in the world can see what you're doing. Coin joins provide a very good measure of privacy, but there still are tons of different ways to de-anonymize users. So when you're transacting the Bitcoin base layer without coin joins, you're pseudonymous. Everyone can see the transaction, but no one knows your identifiable information. But with all of this analysis, they very much could. All right, so now that we've covered, what fungibility and privacy and why perfect privacy isn't needed for fungibility, now we can get into auditability versus privacy. So there's a nuanced argument to be made around the trade-offs between fungibility and auditability. Auditability is important because Bitcoin's breakthrough is the monetary policy that enables the 21 million hard cap, or scarcity. We need to be able to monitor the money supply at any time to ensure that it hasn't been tampered with or a mistake has been made. If we lose confidence in the 21 million hard cap, then Bitcoin is effectively worthless. Full privacy means auditability of the 21 million hard cap is compromised, which undermines the entire premise and value of Bitcoin. And here's a good example of other chains where this has occurred that have full privacy on layer 1. Zcash. Zcash vulnerability permitting infinite ZEC counterfeiting fixed and disclosed. So that's from this Cointelegraph article. Both Zcash and Monero, called privacy coins, have full privacy on layer 1, but they've had inflation bugs that were undetected for some time due to how private layer 1 was. And even more troubling is that post-detection, there isn't a good, clean way to remove the artificial coins because they've been traded and moved around by then. Even, I think the biggest issue here is we look at Bitcoin's blockchain and it has certain features that make it valuable. 21 million hard cap ensures scarcity. That's valuable because I can store my wealth in Bitcoin and don't have to worry about being diluted over time. And then it's censorship resistant, so I can store that value and not have to worry about someone taking it away from me. Now, when it comes to privacy coins, the hypothetical use case for privacy coins was that they were going to be used on dark markets. I remember this argument back in 2016, 2017 when they first came out. But privacy coins aren't being used for privacy. They're being used for speculation. Privacy coins, in practice, have seen a very low penetration in dark market transactions, and that's where they'd be most useful. Here's a quote from Chainalysis, a blockchain intelligence company that parses the blockchain and tries to identify transactions. They say that Bitcoin remains the most popular crypto on the darknet, with anonymous coins representing only a very small portion of all transactions, and with the most popular privacy coin Monero sitting at 5% or less. Well, this is crazy, right? I mean, the whole point of the privacy coin is to be able to buy things that you couldn't buy otherwise or keep your transaction history private. And that is especially important for, buying illegal drugs online. So why do folks still use Bitcoin even though it isn't as private or as Monero or Zcash? Well, network effects are pretty huge. I mean, most of the buyers and sellers want to use Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin has pretty good privacy. So pretty good privacy is with coin joins. It's not perfect. It's, there's debates to be had as if coin joins are as good or better or worse than using Zcash or Monero. But overall, it's good enough that the customer is willing to use Bitcoin with coin joins and the merchants are willing to accept it. So the privacy enabled by Bitcoin is enough that people are willing to stake their future life in prison on it. So I think that the market indicates what the value is of that. And furthermore, the transactions you ideally would want to have the best privacy for only represent a very small portion of network usage. Again, Bitcoin's valuable because we can do certain things with it. We can store value with it. That value is enforced by the 21 million hard cap. And also, what's great is that it's immutable. I can send a Bitcoin to anyone else. What we're talking about here is having full privacy on layer 1. So when we look at the percentage of Bitcoin flowing to dark markets, it's tiny, really, really tiny, like less than 1%, which is pretty wild. So, I would feel very opposed to giving up auditability, which is the use case which enables the use case that most people buy Bitcoin for, to trade off for a very small niche use case of having full privacy, which comes with a whole bunch of different issues, especially when we have pretty good privacy called coin joins. And across all scams and darknet market transactions surveyed by Chainalysis, the total number comprised less than 1% of all economic activity in 2018, and it's probably even less now. If we compromise auditability for a use case that at its strongest is only for 1% of transactions, then I feel like we've missed the mark. Bitcoin is private enough. Privacy isn't the blocker for mass adoption. Otherwise, we would see skyrocketing usage of privacy coins versus coins like Bitcoin with less private. Well, There's, again, a longer argument to be made, but less private transactions in some of those layer 1 fully private coins. Folks who say that Bitcoin needs privacy have no data to show that it is preferred by market participants. Bitcoin has been wildly successful, and folks can use coin joins if they want to ensure greater privacy. And then other solutions like coin joins plus Lightning plus Schnorr dramatically improve privacy without sacrificing auditability. I think these are a good middle area to where, yes, in a perfect world, I'd love to have fully private layer 1 transactions if there was no compromise with auditability. Unfortunately, there is. Finally, Bitcoin survives the 6102, which was the US executive order to seize gold, not through privacy, but through market penetration. If 50% of the population owns Bitcoin, it becomes extremely hard to ban, as politicians who would ban it would be voted out, and many would likely own Bitcoin themselves. 1% of the population poorly implementing privacy, perfect privacy, isn't a deterrent. You become marginalized in a tiny, tiny group. Hope everyone loved the presentation today. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Also check out some of these recommended products like Ledin or BlockFi if you want to earn a yield on your Bitcoin. Talk to you next week. Cheers.